Insurance people of Reddit, what is the most outrageous claim that you have ever come across? If you enjoy this video, consider giving it a like and subscribing. I started off in claims for a major home insurance brand in NZ. Client calls in and says our bed broke. Without approximate cause I can't lodge a claim, and if it's wear and tear, there is no claim, since that isn't covered. Conversation goes around in circles for a while longer and eventually they ask to go to a supervisor. Fortunately the supervisor is my friend sitting behind me, so I get to hear his end of the call. They were having group sex on the bed, 5 people. A 6th person decided to join the festivities and that is when the bed broke. Acceptable and paid claim. I used to work for a fire/water damage restoration company. We show up to a water damage job. Turns out, this guy is trying to turn his 1-story house into a 2-story house and has hired some Amish guys to do the job. At this point, pretty much the entire house is roofless, as in, you look up anywhere from inside the house and see sky. When the Amish dudes finished working the day before, they didn't cover up the house. It rained that night, soaked the entire inside of the house. Insurance covered it. So we spend the day cutting and pulling out soaking wet carpet while the Amish continued working above. I shit you not, they don't cover the house again, and it rains again. Insurance covered that too. We talked to the adjuster and she just had this defeated look on her face. The claim was in the $100,000 and she said these people were basically getting a new house. Haven't seen that much stupidity rewarded that well in a long time. The upside though, after the second night, they started covering up the house. I worked in a car insurance call center and had to deal with someone who was trying to beat the system and got caught. She had crashed her insured vehicle and wanted to make a claim. Standard stuff, except the car and registration number we had on our system was totally different to the actual car she was actually driving and had crashed. She was getting really aggressive towards me on the phone saying, "I told you the exact car I drive, and the registration, you idiot. Why would I say it is an X when it is actually a Y blah blah." I don't remember the actual car model she had insured under, but it was certainly a vehicle that warrants a significantly lower premium. So we looked into it, and eventually my team leader actually dug out, from the archives, the telephone recording from when she took out insurance with us. In it the operator repeats slowly the car model and registration and says, "Is that correct?" She replied, "Yes." Busted. She was so butthurt that we were lying. We actually sent her a CD with the recording on. Former auto claims adjuster here had a guy get into a head-on collision with a semi-truck because it veered into his lane. Walks away from the crash without injury. Tells me on the phone that he is so lucky to be alive and has a guardian angel watching over him. Get another claim a week later where another semi-truck veers into his lane and kills him. Final destination stuff. I've spotted shady body shops raided for fraud in the past who have told me they are going to sue me for defamation after I've asked the customer to move shops. Kid once called in a claim lying about what happened and who was driving his car. We caught him because he made a Facebook post on that day saying what actually happened. Ended up denying the claim because the actual driver had a suspended license. Kids, keep your stuff private because everyone is watching. One time actually informed an insured that his car had been in an accident. He didn't know because his mechanic took a ride out in the insured's nice car without the owner's permission. Had a guy at a construction site back a bobcat into his own personal car. Technically, insurance follows the owner, not the driver, so really the owner of the company's insurance is liable. The owner was pissed that his insurance has to pay the worker, even though the worker backed into his own car, and that would be an easy way to get insurance money. Rules are rules though. I had a guy put in a Department of Insurance complaint against me. Those get investigated very thoroughly, and I've seen people fired for honest mistakes because he caused $400 to the rear bumper of a car that was illegally blocking his driveway, and he was saying he shouldn't have been at fault. If a car is illegally parked, call a tow truck. Don't hit it with your own. A $400 claim wasn't even a high enough payout to surcharge his premium, so he wouldn't have even seen it on his next renewal. So stupid. Had a claimant with a quarter panel dent on his 2003 Mitsubishi Eclipse. The catch? He had a $3,000 Iron Man paint job on it. The car is only worth $2,500. meaning that small quarter panel totaled his car out because the entire car would need to be repainted and the job would exceed the value of the vehicle. He was unhappy. Word of advice, don't get a custom paint job on your car if your car isn't worth the paint that's being put on it. I handle public liability claims for various agencies and large corporate firms. Had a couple who tried to claim from the park management agency for pain and suffering from mosquito bites. They were having a picnic in the park. This is in Asia, by the way, where mosquitoes are a daily occurrence. Also had someone try to claim for injuries sustained from tripping over an uneven tile outside of a shopping mall. CCTV footage from our client, the mall, revealed he had clearly noticed the tile, looked around to see if anyone was watching, then threw himself on the ground. I worked for workman's compensation insurance. A few claims stand out. My favorite one was the guy who thought he was being followed by the FBI. He wasn't, and so when he turned left, and the car behind him also turned left, he, without hesitation, jumped into the passenger seat, then jumped out of the passenger seat's door and rolled into a ravine while the truck, his work truck, smashed into 2 other cars parked at a gas station. The person behind him was just like, "What the actual F just happened?" I could not stop laughing while getting his account of what happened. Imagine watching the driver in front of you turn around, see you, look terrified, then next thing you know they have jumped out of the vehicle. Honorable mention was the campground that had a huge plastic hollow dinosaur statue. The owner had hired a guy to repair/paint the dinosaur, and while he was halfway in the mouth he lost his balance and fell in, breaking his leg. Injury-wise it was minor, but the lady who owned the campground just made the claim unforgettable. She, for no reason at all, I got the info I needed in the first call and required no other contact with her, insisted on emailing me this funny little letters about the incident. An example of an email. Good afternoon, T-Sim. Just thought you'd like to know Doug the dinosaur is doing great. He is doing much better with his diet. Has only gobbled up 3 more people since we last talked. We believe in time we may be able to rid him of his addiction to human flesh and truly domesticate him as part of the family. Cheers. So yeah, that was weird. Amending original post with more stories. Actual licensed claims adjuster here. I handle auto liability investigation and injury settlement. I don't think my story will fit outrageous by what you're expecting, but this one was surprising as I did my investigation. Had a claim come in where the policyholder says some guy backed into them in the post office, then drove off. So, the cops find the guy the next day, and his policy lapsed for the date of loss, and there's no coverage. Our policyholder and one of her passengers, her brother, are claiming injury and they want to use their uninsured motorist coverage to pay for her damages/injuries, which means I still do an investigation and act as the other carrier would have if the guy had coverage. So, we call the dude up, and his story is that our crazy policyholder chased him down a dirt road for several miles. He pulled into a post office in a rural area, dirt parking lot, etc., to try and pull around the building and lose her. The rear of the building was blocked, so she pulled in behind him, blocking him in. He threw the car in reverse and rammed our policyholder's vehicle out of the way and drove off, fearing for his life. I interviewed the cop who attended the accident scene, and it turns out our policyholder gave this kid some cash at a gas station down the road, then realized she gave him a $20 instead of a $10 and asked for it back, and he took off. She chased him down to get her money back. The question left unanswered was if this kid actually feared for his life. Apparently he told the cop that policyholder's brother got out of the car and threatened the kid, at which point he threw the car in reverse and left. The whole thing left a bad taste in my mouth, because I took a statement with our policyholder and there were so many inconsistencies I was sure it was a drug deal gone bad, rather than dude asked for money. Story 2. Here's a good illustration of the roller coaster my job can be. I get a description that says something like, V1 rammed V2 from the rear, then rammed from the side, then crashed. It seems pretty apparent that we'll pay on this loss, but I'm thinking the claimant has way exaggerated what happened to make it seem like our driver was malicious. I call our driver and ask him for a recorded statement about that night and he goes off for 20 minutes all over the place. I slowly piece it together with him that he was at a club with friends and his baby mama saw him hitting on some other girls. They weren't together, but she got jealous, and when they all leave for the night around 2 AM, she and 3 friends/relatives follow him. They get out of their car at the first light they all stop at and try to fight him. He runs a light to get away. He drops his buddies off and drives to his very rural home where he lives alone and goes inside to charge his phone and realizes his house has been ransacked. He goes outside to get his cigarettes from the car to smoke while he waits for his phone to charge enough to call the cops and is jumped by 2 guys who were with his baby mama at the club while she and her sister watch. They pull a knife and stab him in the arm, but he fights the 2 dudes off enough to get to his car and drive off. At this point I'm wondering where the car accident happens, but keep in mind he's telling it all way out of order, and I had to piece this back together. He drives to a neighbor's house, calls 911 then drives back home where the baby mama crew is waiting in front of his house. He pulls in the driveway and finally, it is at that point that he taps their car as he pulls in his driveway and grinds against the side as he tries to correct before getting into his driveway. The cops show up, he goes to the hospital, but he doesn't know about anybody else. So, I'm thinking, man, we owe this claim, but there's no way there are 4 injuries from this. I call the driver of the other vehicle and here's her version, keeping in mind that I never tell these people what I already know. She is driving down the road at around 4 AM with her sister in the front seat, her 2 male cousins in the back, and a commercial van, think E350, hits them from behind, then hits them from behind again, then overtakes their car and rams them from the driver's side and ricochets and crashes in a ditch. The driver gets out and runs away. And of course no one drank that night/s. Now, this is all she tells me. It's all she feels is relevant to the accident. These stories couldn't possibly be more different, and it's obvious someone is telling me so many lies. I interview the other 3 people in V2 and get a pretty identical story with a couple variances. Notably, when Jude gets out of his car, he starts walking towards his house which goes past their vehicle. His baby mama gets out of passenger front seat and says, "Hey, you okay?" or something, and he punches her in the face and keeps walking. The 2 dudes with them were adorably stupid/innocent, but I didn't want to hold it against my driver that he just happened to have no one in his car, whereas the other people could put 4 heads together, until I saw the cars. So, yeah, the full final truth was that this guy heard his ex-GF was at this club flirting with some dudes when a friend texted him. So, he drove to a strip of stores along her path home and waited, getting friends of his at the club to report when they left. He saw them drive past and flew after them in his dad's business van and rammed them twice from the rear at about 60 miles per hour. Then he swung to their driver's side and tried to ram them off the road, but ended up losing control himself and crashing. He got out of the van and started to walk home. As he passed the other vehicle, he punched his ex in the face. I still have no idea who stabbed him, but he went to the hospital that night for stab wounds to his right arm. Detectives who investigated confirmed his house wasn't ransacked, and his version of the story was complete BS. Still, you can never be 100% sure with all the lies flying around. If you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing.